Ford was given the nation's confidence and complete support, but it would not last long. Just 1 month into his presidency, he issued what he described as a full, free, and absolute pardon unto Richard Nixon for all offenses.
I decided that was the only way I could get rid of Mr. Nixon's problems that were taking 25% of my daily time, so I could spend 100% of my time on the problems of 230 million Americans.
You never felt manipulated in that time?
None whatsoever. I made the sole decision, and I have to say most of my staff disagreed with me, but I was absolutely convinced it was the right thing to do, and I'm even more convinced today.
He pardoned Nixon in advance of any litigation, any trial. This had a very serious effect that I don't think Mr. Ford quite anticipated on his own prestige in office. From then on, a considerable part of the electorate thought he was part of the Nixon conspiracy, thought this was a payoff of some kind, and Ford never regained the solid national support that he'd had in his first 30 days.
As president, Ford worked to heal the nation. Unlike Nixon, who had virtually ignored his cabinet, Ford reestablished normal ties. And in an extraordinary act that reversed prior policy, he offered amnesty to young people who had fled the draft during the Vietnam War. Responding to the worst recession since the Great Depression, he called the first White House summit on the economy and made his mark in the area of federal budget cutting. But with an increasingly hostile Democratic Congress, his initiatives were often stopped dead in their tracks. And with the economy failing to turn around, Ford's public support all but disappeared. In 1976, when he attempted to be elected by the people in his own right, he was defeated by Jimmy Carter.
There were some who never forgave the Republicans for the war in Vietnam. There were people that never forgave me for pardoning Richard Nixon. There were people who didn't think our economic recovery was coming along quickly enough. My greatest disappointment was that I couldn't turn a switch and all of a sudden overnight go from an economic recession to economic prosperity.
He almost made it. He came within a hair's breadth of making it. The pardon of Mr. Nixon blurred Ford's accomplishment, but I don't think it erased it. I believe that Mr. Ford's greatest success as president was in demonstrating for 2.5 years, which was all the time he had, that the presidency could be decently administered by responsible people. I think by the end of the Ford administration, people were prepared to see the office in its pre-Nixonian terms, though not, again, to trust presidents as much as they'd been trusted before Lyndon Johnson.
Compromise choices have played an important function in our history, allowing majorities to rally around acceptable and safe figures. But with the exception of men like Garfield or Ford, all too often they have raised up mediocrity. A British observer once asked, "Why do great men in America not become presidents?" That question, uttered in the heyday of party politics, still serves as a potent reminder to American voters. A compromise choice for a president hasn't very often been their best choice.